won't believe, in fact, people from Climber are so excited to attend the lecture. I'm saying there's no space to sit.
Aryaman.
Hey, that's okay. I'll let him be there. Please, sir. Please. कैसे हैं आप? एक तो चलो।
Sir.
कैसे हैं?
What we can do is,
Any? Curious? Want to know the answer? Ladies and gentlemen, please hold your breath. As today, with us, we have the brilliant, the intellectual, yet just 40, Mr. Aryaman Dalmia. He is the author of the book titled Buffett and Me. I have quoted these lines from his book. This young author has scanned many big shots of investment industries, namely Ashish Dhawan, Madhav Dhar, Sanjay Bakshi. So, let's not waste any time, as we all are curious to listen a few words from Mr. Aryaman Dalmia. I will request you all to give a big round of applause and welcome Mr. Aryaman Dalmia.
I thought he's 16, but he's just 14. And he wrote the book when he was 12. And writing a book on a complicated and very, very relevant topic for MBAs especially is something absolutely amazing. And when I heard that he's coming, I thought that I must come with my son so that he sees, he's 11, and he sees how, what 12, I keep telling that, you should never underestimate the power of youth. Babur captured the entire country, at 13. And that's the power of believing in youth, and that's the power of the youth. And he's a great representative of what young people can do. I'm really looking forward to this speech by him.
I would like to start by saying it's my great honor to be here as I start my journey in the field of investing. And today my talk is going to be about the joys and returns in value investing.
Yeah.
Presentation today, I'm going to give answers to many questions, like first being, why should you understand yourself before you understand the market? 2, what characteristics should you look for in a good investment? 3, how should one treat an investment after you have made one? 4, how can you profit from the inefficiencies of the stock market? 5, how have the smartest Indian investors adapted the principles of Graham and Buffett? And lastly, I will summarize what should be learned from the lives of Graham and Buffett. Before we continue, I would like to answer some frequently asked questions. Question 1. What is the attitude of a good investor? Warren Buffett would say, I'm a better investor because I'm a businessman. I'm a better businessman because I'm an investor. 2. Do the principles of Graham and Buffett work today? And in India, Benjamin Graham would say, the underlying principles of sound investment should not alter from decade to decade, but the application of these principles must be adapted. 3. Can we make money in today's tough environment? Warren Buffett would say, be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. 4. How should one approach investments? Benjamin Graham would say, when you are shopping for common stocks, buy them the way you would buy your groceries, not the way you would buy perfume. Now let's move on to what inputs did I use my presentation. I read the following books. They've been really useful to me, and I think if you read them, they'll be really useful to you as well. I also got a chance to interact with many people. Ashish Dhawan, my father Gaurav Dalmia, Madhav Dhar, my uncle Chaitanya Dalmia, and Sanjay Bakshi were a few of them. When I started reading, I expected to learn a lot about investing, economics, business cycles, and financial analysis. But the results were quite spectacular. I learned a lot about human behavior, fallacies in thinking, character, and most importantly about myself, my way of thinking, my priorities, and my own temperament. Benjamin Graham is very well respected in the stock market today. Graham Newman Corp earned an annualized return of 20% from 1936 to 1956 until Graham retired. Stock market had given a return of 12.2% annualized in this time period. Beating the market by such a large number is a remarkable feat. He also wrote two of the most important books in history, which were a culmination of all his wisdom and experience, which were Security Analysis and The Intelligent Investor. I will extract some words of wisdom from The Intelligent Investor. 1. We want to dispel an illusion that has been gaining ground. This was that leading common stocks could be bought at any time and at any price with the assurance not only of ultimate profit, but also that any intervening loss would soon be recouped by renewed advance of the market to new high levels. This was too good to be true. 2. We draw two models for our readers. 1. Obvious prospects of physical growth in a business do not translate into obvious prospects for profits for investors. And 2. The experts do not have dependable ways of selecting and concentrating on the most promising companies in the most promising industries. 3. The habit of relating what is paid to what is being offered is an invaluable trait in investments. Why is Warren Buffett important? In 1965, after nearly making 10 years of various Graham-style investments, Buffett started buying shares of Berkshire Hathaway, a textile company he thought was undervalued. The argument was that the share price was less than $15 per share, while the company had working capital of $19 per share. In addition, it had a plant and equipment for manufacturing textiles. This meant that the money its customers owed to Berkshire, less than the money it owed to its suppliers, was more than the total value of the company. The textile mills were coming for free. Within a year, he had bought enough shares to take control of the company. Berkshire eventually sold the textile business and it became his primary holding company. By 1962, Buffett had become a billionaire. By 1979, his net worth had exceeded $600 million and he first surfaced on Forbes 400 list. By 1990, he had become a billionaire. In 2008, he was the world's richest man and has remained in the top 10 list throughout the last decade. In 2010, his net worth was $45 billion and he was ranked number 2 in the Forbes rankings. If you invested $100 in Berkshire Hathaway in 1964, by the end of 2010, you would have been worth $454,000. By contrast, if you invested $100 in the S&P index in 1964, you would have been worth a mere $5,450. In 1981, only 12 people attended his annual shareholders meeting, whereas in 2010, more than 35,000 people showed up. Why should you understand yourself before you understand the market? Circle of competence. You should distinguish between what you know and what you don't know. There are many opportunities that are possibly promising but fall outside your area of expertise. The smartest investors avoid such opportunities. In the late 90s, during the technology boom, Warren Buffett sat on a war chest of cash but refused to play simply because he did not understand technology. Standard response to a hot new sector follows the crowd. It ultimately leads to a disaster. In the short term, you may do well outside your circle of competence, but this is not a way for wealth creation over the long term. Dalmia has an excellent track record of investing in public companies, but he does not invest in pharmaceutical companies simply because he does not understand them adequately. Founded Chris Capital, one of India's most successful private equity funds. He also got financial services and infrastructure waves early. Yet, he shies away when it comes to investing in real estate. People like Dalmia and Ashish Thapan do not even think of these as missed opportunities. They just find enough opportunities in what they understand. Understanding of circumstances. Circumstances that investors need to think about are age, income levels, savings, ongoing personal and business obligations, etc. Most investors do not do this properly. Many passive investors mistakenly think of themselves as active when they should be reevaluating their positions. They are aggressive when the markets go up and conservative when the markets fall. So instead of following the common sense strategy of buy low, sell high, they end up doing the opposite. Once investors choose their equity and bond investment proportions, they should only change them as their life circumstances change. Simply not because the market has gone up or down. Diversification as risk management. Conventional wisdom is that diversification can help control exposure and manage risk. Buffett would tell you that diversification is misplaced thinking. It leads to loss of profit and fritters away energy. A diversified portfolio is very difficult to create and track and often tempts people to cut corners. Buffett recommends that you should be willing to put 10% of your net worth in any one investment and not do it at all. A study of India's top 10 billionaire list proves that diversification is overrated. Buffett says, diversification is a hedge against our own ignorance. Perils of active trading. Active trading is also a drag on returns. Active trading means that brokerage, taxes, and other frictional costs will eat away your returns. A good investor has confidence he has made a good investment and does not need to trade in and out of them. A trading mindset means you're forced to react to market news and sentiment. It is very difficult to distinguish between useful information and noise. Buffett says his strategy of investment and choice of companies would not change if the market were to shut down for a few years. Benefits of compounding. Most of us think that small differences in return are a part of daily life, and so we tend to ignore them. The truth is that these small differences in return, when compounded over tens of years, can make a colossal difference. If you invested $100 in Berkshire Hathaway in 1970, you have got a 23% annualized return, and you would have been worth $395,000 by the end of 2010. Whereas if you did nearly as well and made 20% return, you would have got nearly $147,000. These differences in absolute return do not show up in short periods of time. For example, after 5 years, with a 23% annualized return, you would have been worth $282, whereas with a 20% annualized return, you would have been worth $249. This would have also given you the false impression that you're doing nearly as well, but this is what separates the mediocre from the extraordinary. What characteristics should you look for in a good investment? A stock is not just a piece of paper, it is a part interest in the company. Therefore, you should not look merely at the information about the stock, but also about the business underlying it. The best way to value a stock is to understand the value of the business as a whole, and only after that, value the stock as a part interest in that company. Surprisingly, most stock market investors do not do this properly. Benjamin Graham has an important requirement. Since forecasting was prone to error and market fluctuations were inevitable, any investment should have a good margin of safety to compensate for these uncertainties. The price being paid should be less than what a prudent investor might consider a fair market price. The difference between the price being paid and the fair market price acts as a cushion during difficult times. Graham and Buffett's experience shows that such opportunities are more common than we think. Indian investors like Ashish Thapan, Sanjay Bakshi, and Chaitanya Dalmia have found this to be in modern day Indian stock market as well. A rigorous mindset. my father, God of Dalmia, says, when the bond markets and stock markets disagree, the bond markets are normally right. The logic is that in the bond markets, there are rigorous tests for safety and risk for a particular bond. The price of the bond is arrived at quite mathematically. Such standards and discipline are not maintained in the stock market. The stock markets try to forecast the future in a seemingly scientific manner, but these remain inaccurate. Many things that people consider as facts are merely opinions. Therefore, conclusions and valuations are quite arbitrary and prone to market sentiment rather than hard evidence. Finding bargains. Graham argued that often enough one can find businesses which are valued at less than the working capital, like Berkshire Hathaway was when Buffett bought it. The bargains, and they're more common than we think. Dalmia invested in Unitech in the late 2003. Market value was $50 million, PE was 4, and the company was available at 40% of its book value. The stock rose 200 times over the next 5 years. At the end of 2010, even though Unitech was an out-of-favor stock, if he had held on, he would have still made 32 times his investment, which is not bad in 7 years. In 2004, Sanjay Bakshi bought shares at HTMT, a call center business, at valuations less than the working capital, less than the company's cash in hand. Problems with forecasts. Buffett argues that people tend to over-rely on forecasts because the analysis is very elegant, and this is a big mistake. One should take them with a pinch of salt and think of businesses from the first principles. Insights from financial statements. Instead of looking at forecasts, Graham and Buffett would look at the history of the performance of the company as reflected in the financial statements of the business. 10-year financial statements tell a lot about the business, more than what people realize. How easy is the industry to make money in? How is the company performing? How is the company growing? What kind of problems has it faced and what may it face in the future? How much do the customers like its products? How much pricing power does it have? How capable is the management? Reasonable answer to all such questions can be obtained from the financial statements. Owners, earnings and leverage. Sophisticated investors like Graham and Buffett do not rely too much on earnings because these are counting numbers and can be distorted by accounting policies. They think a more reliable number is owners' earnings, which is more akin to the Marwari Parta system or what business school teach as free cash flow. Additionally, they believe that risk in a business is directly related to the leverage. In the late 2008, many banks went almost bankrupt and had to be bailed out by governments. These banks had 50 to 1 leverage. Normally, leverages 10 to 1 to international banks. It is this same leverage that was increasing returns during good times and killed businesses during bad times. In the 2008 crisis, a small downturn in the mortgage market combined with leverage amplified the problems. This precipitated the crisis. Citibank's stock fell by 99.5%, while JP Morgan stayed solid. The difference was that Citibank was over-leveraged and JP Morgan was not. EBITDA and ROCE. A strong EBITDA will almost always lead to a strong PAT. ROCE measures how efficiently a company uses its capital and will almost always lead to a strong ROE. A mediocre ROCE can often lead to a good ROE and mislead investors. Therefore, price to earnings ratio, which measures market value of the company compared to profit after tax, which Indian investors look at as a basic parameter, is not the best measure. Enterprise value to EBITDA ratio is a better measure. Notes to financial statements. It is surprising how much valuable information there is in the notes to the financial statement, and yet how few people read them in detail. For example, these notes tell you things like how employee stock options or warrants might dilute the earnings, one-time charges, and adjustments to profits, and other accounting treatments. The Enron and WorldCom falls of the late 90s would have been detected much earlier, and red flags would have been raised if people paid more serious attention to these loans. Distributing surplus cash. Warren Buffett prefers companies to distribute the surplus cash that they cannot invest wisely. Companies focus on revenue growth, which is the natural path forward, and not necessarily on ROCE, and end up using cash in a suboptimal manner. Buffett calls this the institutional imperative and wants investors to be aware of it. Paradoxically, Berkshire Hathaway hardly pays any dividend, and Buffett's argument is that Berkshire is uniquely positioned to allocate capital within various opportunities so can compound investors' money much better than a standard company can. Castles and moats. Buffett uses the metaphor of castles and moats to describe businesses with a solid market position, businesses he likes to invest in. He believes that the characteristics of the business or industry are far more important than the skills of the managers. He learned this the hard way when at Berkshire he kept trying to improve the textile business but eventually gave up and sold it. He's more concerned about the industry's ability to make money rather than grow. Brands as moats. Dominant brands are Warren Buffett's favorites. They're difficult to unseat and are like cash printing machines. His investments in Coca-Cola, Gillette, Wrigley, and American Express are not accidental. They are all market leaders in their various businesses. He made big bets when these companies were undervalued, buying 8.5% of Coca-Cola and 13% of American Express. In the end of 2008, his investments were worth $22 billion, whereas he had only paid $7 billion for these stakes. Dalmia made a similar big and profitable bet in Tata Tea as it was transforming itself from being a commodity tea company to a branded consumer goods product, and its ROCE improved from 10% to 30%. R.C. Thavan made a very profitable investment in Pidilite Industries, which had 75% market share. Sanjay Bakshi's top pick was Hawkins, the pressure cooker and kitchen appliance company, which has 40% market share in North India and great pricing power. Many companies we do not think as brands are actually sold. PNB, Punjab National Bank, India's second largest bank, is an example. It is considered dodgy and boring and not a brand, but it has over 5,000 branches in 765 cities and over 57 million customers, with its deposit rates growing at 18% per year. The brand here is not just the name, but also the distribution network. Dalmia bought the underpriced PNB at the time of IPO in 2002 and was up some 30 times by the end of 2010. Low cost as moats. Berkshire owns more than 70 US and international assurance companies. These businesses are fairly commoditized, and low-cost operations are a core part of strategy for success. These insurance companies generate a float of $62 billion, which is what Warren Buffett has invested to generate his investment returns and create wealth. Berkshire owns regulated utilities such as Mid-American Energy and Burlington North Scientific. Since the pricing of these services are controlled by the government, they follow a conscious low-cost strategy. Monopolies and moats. Graham used to encourage investments in utilities such as electrical power and railroads, since they have very predictable earnings. These businesses are monopolies, which give them a lot of stability. Warren Buffett is well known for looking for monopolies, especially ones which are natural and not regulated. Investments in newspapers is one such example. Buffett bought small stakes in quite a few newspapers, including Washington Post Company. Another example is Indraprastha Gas, a monopoly supplier of CNG and PNG in Delhi, where Sanjay Bakshi is an investor. Superior service as a moat. Buffett also likes investing in businesses with a unique service culture which wow their customers. For examples from Buffett's portfolio include Nebraska Furniture Mart, Wells Fargo, etc. They have very little to distinguish themselves, but they focus on narrow segments. A superior service stands out and it enables them to make a very high ROCE. Ashley Bhavan identified HDFC Bank as a similar bank. HDFC's superior service, new product offering, and efficiency have enabled them to have very high margins and grow faster. Even though it has not been a very cheap stock by standard metrics, if you invested in HDFC in 1998, you would have made 40 Kanja investment. A good company versus a good investment. Hindustan Unilever Limited is a leader in the fast-moving consumer goods. Revenues in 2010 was of $4 billion and profit after tax of $50 million. It has sales growth of 6% per year, ROCE of 135% and PE ratio of 35. However, if you invested in this iconic company in 2000, you would have only made 1.5 times your investment after 10 years. This would be an annualized return of 3.5%. If you added dividends, your return would go up to 6.5% per annum. So how can you take a business which is making more than 100% ROCE and still make only 6.5% return per annum? The answer is high valuation, PE of 35 and stock price 20 times book value. The maths is not obvious to the untrained eye, but it is simple maths. A good company is not always a good investment. It all depends on the valuations. How should one treat an investment after he has made one? Holding for the long term. Once you buy a stock, you should hold it for a long time. Buffett buys companies on the assumption that if the stock market were closed down for 5 years, he would not bat an eyelid. You would have no information regarding the stock price and hence how well your investment was doing. But you would know from the financials of the company how well the actual business was doing. Dalmia, my father, invested in India Bulls, a financial services company, in 2000 and exited in 2006, making 50 times his investment, which is very good. Had he stayed on, he would have received shares in India Bulls Real Estate and India Bulls Power and made 150 times his investment by the end of 2010. Some people think they can exit a good stock, but the markets are high and re-enter at lower valuations. Buffett argues that this strategy has limited appeal because timing such things is very difficult and interim taxes and brokerage eat away your returns. Business drives stock. Buffett claims that over long periods of time, the increase in the stock price is directly related to the increase in the value of the underlying business and not to anything else. People often disregard this second point and go for stocks that are going to be re-rated. While this is applicable for the short term, for example, 5 years, this is not a strategy for wealth creation over long periods of time. Management freedom. Buffett believes that he has chosen businesses that have economic characteristics and managers who are capable. Hence, he allows the managers to behave like owners of their respective businesses and give them full freedom. Buffett almost sounds boastful when he says, "We have a few advantages, perhaps the greatest being we do not have a strategic plan." His post-investment view is very consistent with the pre-investment view that forecasting is very difficult. Forecasting gives a false sense of comfort. A strategic plan gives a false sense of control. Strategic plans are best as guideposts for the direction of a business, and they should not be overemphasized. Berkshire has a market value of $200 billion and yet only has 20 people at its headquarters at Omaha. Challenges to capital allocation. Buffett says that one of the major weaknesses even top managers face is that they're not skilled to capital allocation. Most managers like growth, which is the natural path forward. Few questions in disciplined manner whether the growth is worth it. Buffett wants the top managers of all his businesses to return all their surplus cash to Berkshire unless they have a well-defined use of this capital, measured not by market growth but by financial metrics such as ROCE. I've extracted some facts from the owner's manual of Berkshire Hathaway, which is distributed to all their managers. The first fact I've collected is, even though Berkshire is a company, he thinks of it as a partnership with thousands of shareholders. All managers should be thought of as partners. He has about 99% of his net worth in Berkshire. He wanted managers to similarly feel the pain and gain of the businesses they operate, even if they do not have 99% of their net worth invested in those businesses. Berkshire's goal is to maximize the intrinsic long-term value of his business and holdings and not worry about short-term performances. Berkshire reports financial information about each business it owns in far more detail than normal. He likes his managers to similarly report all relevant facts, even though this may or may not be a statutory requirement. Motivating the management. Berkshire has a generous incentive scheme. Buffett prefers giving incentives directly linked to the performance of a business that a particular manager runs. The key metric is not sales growth or even profit growth, but return on capital. Buffett requires that managers put their own bonus at stake, especially if the business is using more capital. Buffett treats the top managers as partners and constantly sings their praises. A Berkshire CEO said, "He trusts you so much that he just wants to perform." How can we profit from the inefficiencies of the stock market? Human behavior and market inefficiency is that markets are efficient and all facts pertaining to an investment are known in the marketplace and factored in the valuation of individual stocks. Graham and Buffett would tell you that though markets may be efficient in terms of availability of information, they are grossly inefficient vis-a-vis the analysis and decisions you make with available information. People form views based on personal preferences, recent past experience, or half-baked information. And then they look for facts that support their hypothesis and ignore the facts that contradict it. Ironically, predictions normally follow the market movements and therefore tend to be wrong in India. In India, in 2007, almost no one predicted that the market would go down. And in 2010, in the beginning of 2009, very few had the courage to bet that the market would rally. Mr. Market and his moves. Bubbles have an explanation too. As market conditions are good economic growth, high saving rates, low inflation, low rates of interest, easy availability of credit, businesses also perform very well. As time passes, good things become too good. Euphoria takes over facts. Valuations become unrealistic. Bad news or warning signs are ignored. Even conservative investors do not want to miss the next opportunity. A perfect bubble. The same forces that create bubbles create a bear market. Buffett suggests we think of Mr. Market as one of the owners of the business you've invested in. He is emotional and volatile, sometimes euphoric, sometimes depressed. Every day, he's willing to sell in shares or buy them. You can react to him or just ignore him. Buffett suggests you simply use Mr. Market's view as one view and as an opportunity to sell an investment. The average investor gets affected by Mr. Market's view rather than have a own detached independent view, so they end up buying high and selling low. Charlie Munger uses the word Lollapalooza to describe how multiple market forces and human biases come together to create extreme situations, both highs and lows. One can profit from the irrationality through rational thought. Opportunities from inefficiency. In 2007, the Indian stock market is doing very well and overall levels were close to those in the end of 2010. However, in this period, the infrastructure stocks, which were a rage in the market in 2007, have lost a lot of value, while consumer stocks, which were ignored by the market in 2007, have made handsome gains. The next few slides will show you that most infrastructure companies lost 50 to 60% of their value between 2007 and 2010, while the market levels came back to the approximate 2007 levels. ROCE of infrastructure companies was low, while their PE ratios were very high. The bet the market was making was that infrastructure was a hot growth sector, and in this euphoria, all other relevant facts were getting lost. There's a comparison of two sectors, infrastructure and consumer goods. You can look at the infrastructure company GMR and Pidilite, GDK and Dabur, L&T and Colgate, Camel India and Godrej, ACC and Nestle. The only infrastructure company that was near its 2007 levels was L&T. It is not coincidental that L&T enjoyed a much higher ROCE of 18% as compared to its peers. Looking back, over the past 3-4 years shows that growth projections were widely overstated, profit projections were even more widely overstated, and the love affair with infrastructure companies ended in a disaster. No new facts are known about infrastructure businesses in 2010. It was all available in 2007, yet few people saw the facts. Objectivity and market euphoria prevailed upon them. Markets acted irrationally, and the inefficiency in the fact of efficient information and rational facts. Market levels and risk. People tend to associate risk with market levels. They think of a market that has been falling or has been falling as risky, and a market that has been rising or that is rising or has been rising as less risky. Exactly the opposite is true. In 2007, Warren Buffett was on the sidelines. In 2008, as the market stumbled, he spent about $21 billion in 18 months. He bought preferred equity and convertible stocks in 88 companies such as Dow Chemicals, General Electric, Goldman Sachs, etc. Berkshire Hathaway had a war chest of $43 billion at the start of 2008 as a result of discipline and the fact that they had not been investing in 2006 and 2007. When common folk sees a bloodbath, Buffett sees a for sale sign. One could have profited from Infosys in a similar manner. Madhav bought almost 13% of Infosys for Morgan Stanley when its IPO bombed in 1993 because he had the conviction that the fundamentals of the company were solid. If you invested in Infosys at IPO time and stayed to the end of 2010, you would have made about 3,200 times your investment in 17 years. However, if you invested in the same company in the bubble of 1999 and stayed till the end of 2010, you would have only made 6 times your investment in 11 years. If you had invested in Infosys in 2001, after the tech bubble burst, you would have made 33 times your investment in 9 years, leading to 2010. The same company and such high barriers in returns. The explanation is an ongoing market price driven by prevailing market sentiment. What should one learn from the lives of Graham and Buffett? Studying Graham and Buffett was a self-reflection about character. As Jim Rogers says, the best way to get success is to deserve it. George Waitskin says, character is what you sow, destiny is what you reap. The film, Three Idiots had a message. Chase excellence, success will follow. Lessons from Graham and Buffett are objectivity, simplicity, and drive. Objectivity. We should not temper out intuition and impulses with facts. We should not be guided with what others say. Instead of being hijacked by the complexity of the world, we should simplify it by focusing on the most important variables. We should keep our mind uncluttered. Passion for excellence and relentless pursuit of our goals is a key. It is easy to understand these at a theoretical level, but difficult to practice. As Plato says, the first and best victory is to conquer yourself. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Myself, Jain from second year MBA Finance Marketing. You mentioned in your book, common sense is also common. So, in the event of market crashing up, do you believe these principles, underlying principles of Warren Buffett would work for us, or common sense would be a better option?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat your question?
You mentioned in the book common
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
is also something. So, my question is, like, in a situation.
You mentioned in the book that common sense is not so common. So, in an event of a market crashing up, we believe the undermining principles of Warren Buffett would still, we can follow those principles.
In my presentation I said the underlying principles of sound investment should not alter from decade to decade. They should just be, you should just adapt them to the market. Like you shouldn't change the the principles never change. You should just adapt them to your circumstances. So I think these principles would work.
Thank you.
My name is Dalmia. We have been talking about Warren and Graham for a lot of time now. I have to. Do you feel that we are following their principles and theories? This shows that we as Indians lack a spirit of entrepreneurship somewhere because we are not able to come up with our own principles and theories in investment.
No, I think I don't think we lack. I think we should just. I don't.
More than anything else, my question is that a spirit of entrepreneurship should be taught to people in all the B schools and students. That should be the main focus so that they can go ahead in the market and make good investments. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think there should be that. Yeah.
That young man.
Yeah, good. You know, I've never invested a penny in shares, and because I believe in all these principles actually. Because at the end of the day, what's most important is that you must believe in what you're doing, and you must understand the business that you are investing in or working about, and you must participate in it as if it's your own business. And I've been very often tempted by, especially whenever there's a wave which has come, be it a real estate or an internet wave, and I've been told by many that you must make some investments right now, but things which have not really, I've not been involved with, I don't understand fully well, I have stayed away, and I've always found that taking up your own business, working with complete involvement with that is going to pay you more returns. And whenever anybody has spoken to me about investments, I've said that you got to be an investor if that's your business. And I don't invest because that's not my business. And if I ever were to invest, I would really look at investments as a key business of mine. And then apply all the principles that you normally apply in businesses into that business. So then you work hard, you don't get swayed by emotions, you look into the basic fundamentals, you, as I think Buffett said, that you get greedy when others are fearful, and you are fearful when others are greedy. I think that's one very important lesson for all businesses, be it investments or be it a normal business. I think what Aryaman really spoke today, and I want the presentation photocopy to be distributed amongst all students interested in finance, is a summary of all that we actually are taught, and a very, very simply worded summary of all that we are taught in an investment management paper over a 6-month semester or about a year. maybe a few technical things are missing, which again, when he speaks about the importance of compounding and understanding the importance of compounding, I think all your IRR, NPV and other things are taken care of. If one understands compounding, then you don't need to be taught IRR, NPV and other things. So minus certain mathematical formulas, everything possible that you could really learn in an investment management paper has been very beautifully summarized with examples from the best of people who've made really a lot of money. And I think it's an inspiration for all of us to learn what some of these absolutely wonderful people had to say and how they made their money. And at the end of it, what we go back learning is that there is no shortcut to success. As they say that it took 20 years of hard work to become an instant overnight successful man. So that's what you need to understand, learn. Don't ever think that I'm going to become a millionaire by investing on the side or in stock markets without following any principles and being sincere about it. You're going to become a pauper. You'll lose money, you'll lose your pants, you're going to finally end up being in debt, losing your mother's lifetime investments, your father's lifetime money. So take it very, very seriously if you were to ever get into that. And that's, I think, why his uncles and the others is referred to who really made a lot of money. I think their real focus is investments, and they are not there to just make money. Very often when you want to make money, you end up becoming a pauper. But when you want to work hard and give your life into something in a lot of sincerity, you end up making a lot of money as well. So the focus is understanding, sincerity, and working hard. And I think that Aryaman, for bringing out all those points very sweetly and nicely at this very young age, deserves another big round of applause. We also have his entire family out here, his grandfather, father, mother, and family friends. I think.
His sister.
Yeah, absolutely, his sister, and deserve a big round of applause because this was absolutely brilliant to have, in today's day and age of video games and everything that dumbs you down and makes you an idiot, to keep your child away from all that crap and get him into something very interesting, something that the family has been passionate about, I'm sure, and get him involved in a manner that he's using his free time. I'm sure he's a good student in school, so he's using his free time in a very, very constructive, productive manner, developing a passion which is going to make him more and more intelligent, and I'm sure that he's going to become better than his uncles and parents and grandparents and great-grandparents who've been amongst the biggest industrialists at one point of time, and the tradition has continued over the generations. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming. It's been brilliant. I hope that my son, by doing various other things, did also get a little inspired. Thank you so much.